pregame.com.
Live from the pregame studios in Las Vegas, I'm Ted Savransky, Teddy Covers, joined by the professor, Dave Malinsky, and we're here to break down Thursday night football. Steelers, Ravens, brutal divisional battle. Baltimore -3 at home, facing a must-win scenario after losing a division game already on their home field, Dave, and the total sitting at 44.5.
Yeah, usually, Teddy, we're not talking must-win on week number 2, but you're right. You cannot afford to lose 2 division home games this early in the season if you're going to be able to compete over the course of the year. It means an awful lot of pressure on the Ravens. Didn't respond well in the opener against Cincinnati. They were actually kept in the game by the Bengals being so ineffective in the red zone. Made a couple of plays, one of them a little bit fluky, to take the lead in that game, but there's an awful lot of pressure on Harbaugh and the Ravens Thursday.
But here's a Pittsburgh team, 9-4 as an underdog under Tomlin in their last 13 tries. So they've been in this role successfully, repeatedly. And we're talking about a Steelers team and a series that has been remarkably close, Dave. If you're taking +3 in every game, guess what? 9 of the last 10 regular season meetings between these two teams have been decided by a field goal or less. Here's Baltimore. They have offensive line issues. They've got issues in the secondary. Although Ladarius Webb, who missed last week, is likely to play this week. I don't know if he's going to be 100% with his back injury, but it's a Baltimore team that had their issues in preseason. They certainly had their issues week 1 against Cincinnati. As you mentioned, kept in the game because the Bengals were kicking field goals and shooting themselves in the foot in the red zone. I mean, given the series history, what do you think about this side?
I'm not sure what I do with history concerning Pittsburgh. Over the last couple of years, no defense has fallen more in the NFL than the Steelers. Once the league began to implement the new rules, a couple of years ago, I said you can't hit the quarterbacks as much. You can't hit the receivers as much. The Cowher defense, subsequently the Tomlin defense, were built around hitting people, making them fearing going over the middle. So what did we see on Sunday? Something very alarming. The Steeler defense became blocking sleds in the second half against Cleveland. Cleveland had 41 second half plays, 288 yards, a pair of running backs from non-BCS level schools, rookies.
I got to stop you right off the bat. Now, you watch preseason football like a hawk. I watch preseason football like a hawk. These are 2 running backs, and both of us, we're college football experts. Let's put it that way. You ever heard of either one of these guys before?
Actually, yeah, because they both tested well in the combine. They both have a little bit of talent, but somehow late in the third quarter or early in the fourth quarter, you make adjustments. That wasn't Leroy Kelly. That wasn't Jim Brown. The Steelers weren't able to make adjustments. So here's the big concern. 41 snaps in the second half because they looked tired. On Sunday, Baltimore gets off 85 snaps. Do we possibly smell something that could matter on Thursday? A tired Steeler defense going into an up-tempo Baltimore offense? That may be something a little different than we've seen in this series history.
Sure, and if you've been playing totals in this series, there hasn't been a single regular season meeting in the last 10 tries that's gone over the current number of 44.5. But we're talking about, as you mentioned, a very different Steelers defense. You remember during the preseason when Troy Polamalu went nuts, went ballistic on his defensive teammates in game saying, who are these guys? Why can't we get stops? They're re-signing Brett Kiesel, out of retirement because they have no options. Pittsburgh defense a little bit old. They're a little bit slow. They're not the most confident team. And as you mentioned, 85 snaps, 62 pass attempts for Flacco, and that's not counting the sacks. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh, they're going to chuck it downfield. What did Roxburgh average? About 9 yards per attempt in week number 1 against Cleveland's supposedly pretty good pass defense. We got some playmakers here for totals. That'll make a difference, doesn't it?
Looks like we're setting something up here. If you want to win money, you don't repeat history. You learn to make history. Teddy, sounds like you want to do that this week.
Yeah, let's make it official, Dave. It's time. Totals have to do with pace and tempo. 2 teams that are going to run a fair bit of no huddle. Pittsburgh likes to run it. Baltimore likes to run it. 2 defenses that I don't really trust. 2 offenses with some playmakers. Antonio Brown last week, he made some highlights. No question about that. And for the Ravens, Steve Smith with an instant impact, given his acquisition this past offseason from Carolina. Wasn't sure how much of an impact he'd have. He had a big impact in week 1 against Cincinnati. Yeah, History says it's not the way to go, and that's going to keep this total in a very reasonable range. Let's take the Steelers and the Ravens over 44.5. That's the play of the day for Thursday night.